Good morning, children. We have already started the lesson 1, French Revolution. Keep the textbook in front of you and underline the words and learn the meanings. Today we will start the topic, the outbreak of French Revolution. Now we move on to the outbreak of the revolution. Louis XVI had to increase taxes for reasons you have learnt in the previous section. How do you think he could have gone about doing this? In France, the old regime, the monarch did not have the power to impose taxes according to his will. Rather, he had to call a meeting of the Estates Generals which would then pass his proposals for new taxes. The Estates General was political body to which the three estates sent their representatives. However, the monarch alone could decide when to call a meeting of this body. This last time it was done was in 1614. See, as we know that the king, as soon as he came to the throne, he saw that the treasury was empty. That and all we learnt it, right? So how he has to fulfill his one? That by imposing the taxes. So Louis XVI had increased the taxes. For reason we have learnt already that one. But how do you think he could have gone about doing this? So it is not so easy to impose taxes as he independently. Understood? He cannot do what he want to do independently. That means in the France, the old regime, the monarchy did not have a power to impose the taxes according to his will alone. That means monarchical system, it is an independent one, no doubt. But in France, in the monarchical system, what they did, they don't have a right to take the decision independently. So they had to call the meeting. They have three estates, right? First one, second one, and third one. So first one is nobles, and second one is the clergies, and the third one is the third estate people. They used to pay the taxes, more taxes, right? So these three estate representative, he has to call for meeting, and then he has to put the proposals in front of them. That means he was planned to put the tax for that. He want to put the proposals in front of those representatives. If they agreed, then only he can implement the tax in the state. That is the system in the France monarchials. So, these monarchial, they decide. And even these people will decide when they should call the meeting, when they should decide that. So, before that, they called the meeting in 1614. That means almost 80 years ago, they called the meeting. Again, they have to call the meeting if they want to impose the taxes on the people. Is it clear, children? Shall we go to next paragraph? On May 5th, 1789, Louis XVI called together an assembly for the Estates General to pass proposal for new taxes. A resplendent hall in Versailles was prepared to host those delegates. The first and second estate sent 300 representatives each, who were seated in rows facing each other on two sides, while the 600 members of the third estate had to stand at the back. The third estate was represented by more prosperous and educated members. Peasants, artisans, and women were denied entry to the assembly. However, their grievances and demands were listed in some 40,000 letters which representatives had brought them. So, monarch decided when we have to call the meeting for that. In that, to sit the delegates, if you call somebody for the meeting, we will arrange one hall for the meeting purpose, right? In the same way, the hall was prepared for the delegates in Versailles. The first and second estates, 300 people, representative came. 300 representative came for the meeting. They sat in the rows facing each other. Besides that, these the third estate people were standing at the back. So what type of people were? They were represented by more prosperous and educated people were representing this third estate. So peasant, artisan, women were denied to the entry of the assembly. They were not allowed for that. So what they did, they sent their grievances, their demands, listed with 40,000 letters which the representative brought with them. Those who came for the meeting, for this assembly, for this purpose, they brought the letters from another 40,000 people. They sent a letter to the meeting. Voting in estate general in the past had been conducted according to the principle that had been estate had one vote. This time too, Louis XVI was determined to continue the same practice. But members of third estate demanding voting now be conducted by the assembly as a whole, where each member would have one vote. This was one of the democratic principles put forward by philosophers like Rousseau in his book The Social Contract. When the king rejected this proposed, members of the third estate walked out of the assembly to protest. So voting in this estate general in the past had been conducted according to the principle that each estate had to vote only one vote. But this time also he wants to do the same procedure. Louis XVI was decided the same principle had to be followed. But the members of third estate demanded that voting now be conducted by assembly as a whole, where each member would have one vote. All the members of the third estate also has to one vote. You have to give them for voting right. So this one of the democratic principles put forward by the philosopher. That means this rejected the kings. There's one vote for one member. They rejected by the kings, and members of third estate, they protested and walked out of the assembly hall. The king was not accepted this. So the third estate 600 people were there, representative were there, they are not accepting his principles, and they walked out to protest that one. Is it clear, children? The representatives of the third estate viewed themselves as a spokesman for the French nation. On 20th June, they assembled in the hall of an indoor tennis court in grounds of the Versailles. They declared themselves a national assembly and swore not to disperse till they had drafted the constitution for France and would limit the powers of monarch. So what they decided, the third estate people, I am repeating you children once again, on the 20th June, the third estate people, they are gathered in the Versailles ground, and they declared national assembly and draft constitution to limit the powers of the monarchies. So this was, one person has to be lead all those things. The person, Mirabeau, he was led by this third representatives. He was the Mirabeau was born in a noble family, but was convinced with need to do away with feudal privilege and obey. And obey says, originally a priest wrote pamphlet. What is third estate? While the National Assembly was busy at Versailles drafting a constitution, the rest of France seethed with turmoil. Underline the word seethed and turmoil. Write the meaning for the seethed. Filled with anger. That means they are so angry. People were very angry in the rest of the France. not in the assembly, in the rest of France. Okay. Write the meaning of turmoil, that is confusion. A severe winter had meant a bad harvest. The price of bread rose. Often bakers exploited the situation and hoarded supplies. Underline the word hoarded. That means the secret storage of the food. Understood? I will repeat once again. Secret storage of the food. The meaning of hoarded. After spending hours in long queues at the bakery, crowds of angry women stormed. That means they start disturbing into the shops. At the same time, the king ordered troops to move into the Paris. On July 14th, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. In this paragraph, what they explained is, while the National Assembly at Versailles was drafting the constitution about the voting, this, that and all, right, at the time, and the rest of the France was filled with anger. Anger means the people came to know that the severe winter had meant bad harvest. The price of bread will rose. So they started protesting against that in front of the bakers. Even the women were standing in front of the bakers and they stormed themselves. So at the same time, the king ordered the troops to move into the Paris. So on July 14th, they destroyed the Bastille. You know the meaning of Bastille? I already explained to you in the first paragraph only. Understood? So they agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. Understood? Shall we go to the next paragraph? In the countryside, rumors spread from village to village that the lords of the manor had hired bands of brigands who were on their way to destroy the ripe crops. Caught in a freeze of fear, peasants in several districts seized hoes and pitchforks and attacked chatioks. They looted hoarded grain and burned down documents containing records of manorial dues. A large number of nobles fled from their homes, many of them migrating to neighboring countries. The rumors spread from village to village that lords of the manor had hired bands, brigands, whoever, they destroy the ripe crops. These rumors were spread across the empire. So caught in freeze, a fear. The peasants are having that fear. So what they did? They hold all these ornament, that is hoes and pitchforks, and they attacked the noblemen. Noble houses. Okay, residence of noblemen. That is chatioks. Chatioks means what? The residence of noblemen. So as soon as the rumors spread into the city, the people, they have that fear, right? So what they did immediately, they took all their tools, that is forks and this hose, everything they took, and they attacked to the residence of the noblemen. That is called as chatioks. They looted hoarded grain and burned down documents containing the records manorial dues. These people, they destroyed everything and they burnt it. A large number of nobles fled from their homes, many of them migrating to the neighboring countries. See, as soon as they attacked themselves, they have that fear. Immediately they came out of the houses and they move into the neighboring cities. Is it clear, children? Shall we go to the next paragraph? Faced with the power of his revolting subjects, Louis XVI finally accorded recognition to the National Assembly and accepted the principle that his powers would from now on be checked by a constitution. On the night of 4th August 1789, the Assembly passed a decree abolishing the feudal system of obligations and taxes. Members of the clergy too were forced to give up their privileges. Writs were abolished and lands owned by the church were confiscated. As a result, the government acquired assets worth of rupees at least 2 billion livres. See, after this, they are moving from migrating to the neighbor countries. The power of his revolting subjects, Louis XVI finally accorded the recognition of the National Assembly and accepted the principle that his powers would from now was checked by the constitution. What he did? he was given the permission for the abolition of feudal system of obligation and taxes and no privileges to the clergies. Tithes was abolished and land owned by the church was confiscated. Underline the one confiscated. That means they seized their properties. Understood? Shall I repeat once again? See, after this, all this revolting, the people were moving from one country, neighboring countries. The Louis XVI finally accepted the recognition, the National Assembly, and he gave the assembly. He abolished the feudal system of obligation and taxes, no privileges to the clergy. Tithes was abolished, and land owned by the church was confiscated. That was seized by the government on 4th August 1789. As a result, the government acquired the assets of worth of rupees 2 billion livres. Livres means it is the currency of the France. That much of property was seized by the government. Is it clear, children? Next, we move on to the France becomes a constitutional monarchy. The National Assembly completed the draft of the Constitution in 1791. The main object was to limit powers of the monarch. These powers, instead of being concentrated in the hands of the one person, were now separated and assigned to different institutions, that is, legislative, executive, and judiciary. This made France constitutional monarchy. That is showing in the figure number 7. See, observe the picture and you will come to know the power, how their system were divided. The Constitution of 1791 vested power to make the laws on the National Assembly, which was indirectly elected. That is, citizens voted for the group of electors who in turn choose the assembly. Not all the citizens, however, had the right to vote. Only men above 25 years of age who paid taxes equal to at least 3 days of a laborer's wage were given the status of active citizens, that is, they were entitled to vote. The remaining men and all women were classed as passive citizens. To qualify the elector and then as the member of the assembly, a man had to belong to the highest bracket of taxpayer. In this paragraph, what they explained is the constitution draft was completed in 1791. That we already learnt it. So the first main object of why they made all this constitution, because to limit the power of the monarchy. That means we should not give the full power to the king, the monarchical government. That is the reason they made this constitution. So what they thought, that these powers, instead of being concentrated from one person, that they divided into 3. For example, if we are only one person cannot go through with all these powers, right? They cannot see all the things what was happening in the country. That is the reason what they did. They divide the responsibility. They divide the responsibility, or they divide the powers. How they divided into? They divided into 3. That is legislative, executive, and judiciary. These 3 powers, these 3 political powers, concentrated on the empire, easy to administer the country. If the power is divided into 3 groups, so each group will take care of their particular area. They need not to go for judiciary, they need not to go for legislative. The work what they have to do, that they will do within their areas, within their power. So these 3 are divided into constitutional powers. That is executive, legislative, and judiciary. This made the France to the constitutional monarchy. Next we move on to the constitution in As we know that Constitution was formed in the National Assembly. That power was distributed. Everything was over. Which was what it is? It is indirectly elected by the people itself. But these citizens voted. Everybody cannot vote, right? What they made a rule for that, only men above 25 years of age who paid the taxes equal to at least 3 days of a laborer's wage were given the status of active citizen. That means all cannot be right to vote. Only the 25 above the 25 years of age, those who are paying taxes, a minimum wages of 3 days labors of that, those persons, those citizens are given the active citizenship. That is, they were entitled to vote. That means they are eligible to vote. To qualify an elector and then as a member of the assembly, if he is an elector, he has to a member of the assembly, a man had to belong with the highest bracket of taxpayer. If you want to become a member of the assembly, you must be a highest taxpayer. That is the condition of that. Is it clear, children? The revolutionary journalist Jean-Paul Marat commented in his newspaper, El Ami du Peuple, that is Friends of People, explained how wealth influences laws. That means if the person, those who are having money, they are ready to become the member of the assembly. Understood? Shall we go to the next? The constitution began with the declaration of rights. What are the types of rights are there? That is right to speech, right to life, right to the freedom of opinion, right to equality of before law. They were established with the natural inalienable rights. That is, they belong to each human being by birth and could not be taken away. For example, if I was born in this India, automatically my right will be, automatically it comes to my birth, right? Nobody is will ask you, you are the citizen of this, you are getting, it is not necessary. Automatically I am getting the right of this vote. Nobody can taken away. It was the duty of the state to protect each citizen's natural rights. What are the rights they have mentioned here? That the declared rights of man and the citizen, automatically it comes to us. Nobody can taken away from us. Is it clear? So these rights, the duty of these rights has to protect from the state itself. These natural rights has to be protected from the state. Is it clear? The Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizen. Men are born and remain free and equal in rights. The aim of every political association is the preservation of the natural and inalienable rights of man. These are liberty, property, security and resistance to oppression. The source of sovereignty resides the nation. No group or no individual may exercise authority that does not come from the people. Liberty consists of the power to do whatever is not injurious to others. The law has the right to forbid only the actions that are injurious to society. Law is the expression of the general will. All citizens have right to participate in its formation, personally or through their representatives. All citizens are equal before it. No man may be accused, arrested or detained except the cases determined by the law. Every citizen may speak, write and print freely. He must take responsibility for the abuse of such liberty in cases determined by the law. For the maintenance of the public force and for the expenses of administration, a common tax is indispensable. It must be assessed equally on all the citizens in proportion to their means. Since property is a sacred and inviolable right, no one may be deprived of it unless a legal established public necessity requires it. In that case, a just compensation must be given in advance. In the first, what they declare the rights is, men are by born they have the right. They got the equal rights. The aim of every political association is the preservation of natural inalienable rights of man. These are liberty, property, security, and resistance or oppression. The aim of every political association. This is the preservation of the natural and inalienable rights of man. And next is the source of all sovereignty resides in the nation. No group or individual may exercise authority that does not come from the people. Liberty consists for the power and whatever is not injurious to others. Whatever you can do, you will do, but you can do it, but it should not be injurious to the others. The law as the high right forbids only actions that are injurious to society. And next is, every citizen may speak, write, print freely. He must take responsibility for the abuse. If anything is wrong in the society or in the state, they can say, they can express their opinions. That right were there. For the maintenance of public forces, for the expense of administration, a common tax is indispensable. It must be assessed equally on all the citizens proportional to their means. That means what are the taxes are implemented, that is everybody is paying the tax according to their means. Since property is scarce inviolable right, no one may be deprived of it unless a legally established public necessity requires it. In that case, just compensation must be given in the advance. Is it clear, children? Shall we go to the next? In page number 12, they have given some symbols. Reading political symbols they have given, that you have to make one activity for this. Is it clear, everybody? You have to make this as an activity and do it in a A4 sheet. Is it clear to everyone? This is a project for you. You have to do this. Here they have given some symbols, right? The political symbols. First they have given the chain that was broken. What it indicates that? Becoming free. And the second one they have given bundle of rods. We already learnt in when you were in second standard or first standard, I think so. So there the unity is strength. One lesson is there. In the same way they explained it. And next is eye within the triangular radiating light. The all-seeing eye stands for knowledge. The rays of the sun will drive away the clouds of ignorance. That is the symbol of eye. Next is symbol of royal power. What they are given on this scepter, right? That is the symbol of royal power. And next they have given the red Phrygian cap. Cap worn by slave upon becoming free. The blue, white, red, the national colors of France. And next, winged woman, personification of law. That is the freedom of law. The law table, the law is the same for all and all are equal before it. All are equal. There is no discrimination in law. Next, we move on to France abolishes monarchy and becomes a republic. The situation in France continued to be tense during the following years. Although Louis XVI had signed the constitution, he entered into secret negotiation with the King of Prussia. Rulers of other neighboring countries too were worried by the development in France and made plans to send the troops to put down the events that had been taking place there since the summer of 1789. Before this could happen, the National Assembly voted in April 1792 to declare the war against the Prussia and Austria. Thousands of volunteers thronged from the provinces to join the army. They saw this as a war of the people against the kings and aristocracies all over Europe. Among the patriotic songs, the song was Marseillaise, composed by the poet Roger de l'Isle. It was sung by the first time by volunteers from Marseilles as they marched into Paris and so got its name. The Marseillaise is now the national anthem of France. what they explained in this paragraph is the situation France continued to be tense. That means France was the Louis XVI signed the secret negotiation with Persia. So, but in 1792, National Assembly raised war against the Prussia and Austria. So, many of the people were joined to this army also. So, other countries, they were worried about the development of France and made the plan to send the troops to put down the events that had been taken place. They were worried because it will be affected for all the neighboring countries, right? So, they were worried about this. So, thousands of volunteers joined the army. The war was against the kings and aristocracies all over the Europe. So, among the patriotic songs they sang was the Marseillaise composed by the poet Roget d'Isle. It was sung by the first time in the voluntary from Marseilles. They were marched into the Paris. Patriotic song they sung was the Marseillaise composed by the poet Roget d'Isle. It was sung for the first time by the volunteers and it became the national anthem of the France. Is it clear? Shall we go to next? The revolutionary was brought losses of economic difficulties to the people. While the men were away fighting at the front, women were left to cope with the task of earning a living with the looking after their families. Large sections of the population were convinced that the revolution had to be carried further, as the Constitution of 1791 gave political rights only on the richer sections of society. Political clubs became important rallying point of people who wished to discuss government policies and plan their own forms of action. The most successful of these clubs was Jacobins, which got its name from the former convent of Saint Jacob in Paris. Women too, who had been active throughout his period, formed their own clubs. Section 4 of this chapter will be tell about the activities and demands. In this paragraph, they explained about the post-war period. That means after the declaration of the revolution, what will happen? The Revolutionary Wars brought the losses and difficulties cropped in. Men were at front and women were earning, living and looking after their families. They both are earning for their families. Many clubs were formed. In that, the major is Jacobin clubs. The Jacobin clubs, it was after the Saint Jacob in Paris. He included all shopkeepers, artisans, shoemakers, pastry cooks, watchmakers, printers, and servants, daily wages workers. With all these things, he formed the clubs. Even the most successful of these clubs, the Jacobin clubs. So, the women too had been active throughout the period. Even in these clubs, women also very active throughout this period. The members of the Jacobin Club belonged mainly to the less prosperous sections of society. They included small shopkeepers, artisans such as shoemakers, pastry cooks that I already explained you. Their leaders was Maximum Robespierre. A large group among the Jacobins decided to start wearing the long striped trousers similar to those worn by dock workers. This was to set themselves apart from the fashionable section of society, especially nobles who wore knee breeches. The members of the Jacobins are the prosperous sections of society. That means all types of people were there in that society. They decided to start wearing long striped trousers, similar to those worn the dock workers. This was set themselves apart from the fashionable sections of society. You can see this dress in the picture in figure 9. The way proclaiming the end of power wielded by the wearers of knee breeches, these Jacobins came to known as the sans-culottes. Literary meaning those without knee breeches. Sans-culottes men wore in addition the red cap that symbolized liberty. Women, however, were not allowed to do so. So those who are wearing the red cap, no, that is the symbol of the liberty that women were not allowed to do. In the summer 1792, the Jacobins planned an insurrection of a large number of Parisians who were angered by the short supplies of high price of food. On the morning of August 10th, they stormed the palace of the Tuileries, massacred the king's guard and held the king himself as hostage for the several hours. Later, assembly voted to imprison the royal family. Elections were held. From now on, all men of 21 years of above, regardless of wealth, got their right to vote. Jacobins, along with the Parisians, stormed palace of Tuileries and held kings as hostage for many hours. Later, the assembly voted to imprison the royal family. So, the assembly voted for the imprisonment and elections were held. Then onwards, all men of 21 years and above, despite wealth, got the right to vote. That means our 21 years above men are eligible to vote. That was implemented. The newly elected assembly was called Convention. On the 21st September 1792, it abolished the monarchy and declared France as a republic. As you know, a republic is a form of government where the people elect the government, including the head of the government. There is no hereditary monarchy. You can try and find out about some other countries that are republicans and investigate when and how they became so. Louis XVI was sentenced to death by a court on the charge of treason. On 21st January 1793, he was executed publicly at the Place de la Concorde. The Queen Marie Antoinette met with the same fate shortly after. The newly elected assembly was called Convention. On 21st September 1792, the monarchical system was abolished. France is declared the republic country. Is it clear, children? The newly elected assembly was called Convention. On 21st September 1792, monarchical system was abolished and the France was declared a republic. What do you mean by republic? People elect the government. There is no hereditary monarchy. That means the king is the king. Next, the king's son will be the king. That system was not there. The republican system was formed in France in the year 1792. Please note down the dates. Please write down all the dates one by one in your notebook. I will give you as a assignment. Is it clear? Louis XVI was sentenced to death on charge of treason on 21st January 1793, executed publicly at the place of de la Concorde. The same thing was happened for his wife also. That is Marie Antoinette. Understood? The Louis XVI was sentenced to death on 21st January 1793. The same thing was happened to his wife also. Is it clear, children? Next class we will continue with the reign of terror. Is it clear? Thank you, children.